and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be talking about my coming out story. Greetings. Oh my gosh, I can't get my intro down. I'm nervous. I did not charge my camera or my light, so hopefully nothing dies on me. Tell that I'm putting off this video. I feel very weird. Hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Today's a little bit of a different video for me. I'm getting a little bit more vulnerable, if you will, and I'm going to be talking about my coming out story. So it's June, it's Pride Month. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. I mainly talk about books on this channel, but in the beginning of the year, I really wanted to become more vulnerable with you guys and post more lifestyle content. And in the beginning of June, I posted videos back to back for 2 weeks, like literally back to back for 2 weeks. And it was me just recommending a bunch of queer and LGBTQ romances that I absolutely love. And in one of those videos, I think I told you guys that my coming out story was kind of traumatic in a way, and it was just an experience, and that one day I would share it, and a lot of you guys seemed interested in it. And I debated posting this video because it is something so personal to me, but I just felt compelled to do so. One, because you guys are like, I'm already crying. Okay, we're definitely gonna cry in this video. I really wanted to share this. One, because you guys are like literally my best friends ever. I came out to you guys before I even came out to my own family, and I feel like some people could relate to my story and what I went through. Okay. Emotions out. My coming out story is not linear. It happened in the span of many years, different situations, telling different people. And right now I'm in a very good place, both mentally and physically, and in the relationships that I have with the people around me. It was not always like that. So I just want to put like a little trigger warning in here, very light trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about a time where I was very depressed, had very intrusive thoughts and thoughts of self-harm. I am going to be talking about some religious trauma, mentions of a cult, also just slight homophobia. So if any of those things are triggering for you, I totally understand, because they were triggering for me living through them. So I totally understand if this is not your video to watch. All right, let's just hop in. So like I said, my coming out story was not linear. It was not one singular aha moment. It's not how it is in the movies, where it's just one grand gesture and everyone in your life knows. It definitely happened over a span of many years. This is a book channel. I want to mention one book that kind of explains that really good. It's called You and Me by Tao Bauer. This is a male-male romance. It's a single dad romance that is super emotional. And in this book, one of the characters says, coming out isn't a one-time thing. It's every person for the rest of your life. It's thinking twice about who you should let close and who you shouldn't. Not every queer experience is the same, but I feel like that one quote really, it describes it really well, because it's not one moment, it's not one person, it's something that you're constantly having to talk about, kind of like debate if this person is a safe person for you, if that's something you want to tell them. This is the first time you guys ever watched a video from me. My name is Samantha. I identify as a bisexual woman with she, her pronouns. I'm gonna give you guys some backstory of my life because I feel like it's really important. It's that when I was younger, I went to a really small private school from preschool all the way to 12th grade. This school was a preschool, an elementary school, middle school, high school, all in one. I never left. People think of private schools, again, they think of TV shows and like uniforms and very like rich and posh. And although we did have uniforms, it wasn't quite like that. Parents were a middle class family, and they really worked their butt off to allow me to go to this private school. Totally acknowledge, you know, how privileged I was to be able to go to this school that was so small and so personal. And when I tell you guys it was small, my graduating class, my senior class, was 10 people, 5 girls and 5 boys. Everyone in that class I had known since literally like the first grade. It was tiny. It was also a Christian school. I remember graduating and having a huge culture shock. It's difficult to explain the dynamic because I was very grateful and very privileged to be able to go to this school, and I have a lot of good memories from it, but in the same token there was a lot of religious trauma. The school was not incredibly diverse and had very heavy religious ideals, and I remember growing up, our science class and our sex ed class and our Bible class, purity culture was pushed and pushed. Sexuality was never discussed. Sex in general was never discussed because the only answer was abstinence. And purity culture, that was it. Every year they would have the same sermon about purity culture and how abstinence was the only answer, and dating was to find the person that you want to marry, and that was it. Like casual dating, a sin. Living it, I had a lot of good memories and a lot of good relationships and friendships. So I can think of a million good memories that I had, but I can also think of how harmful some of that rhetoric was. So in high school, I did not date, like literally at all. One, there was like no options, okay? There was 10 of us. I was always told that you should really only be dating if you're ready to get married. And in high school, you're like obviously not ready to get married. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm just never gonna date until I'm ready to get married, which is such a weird concept. And for the longest time, I honestly thought that I was like asexual because I just never even felt compelled to be in a relationship or even attracted to anyone around me. I don't recall there being maybe one queer person in the school. It was very isolated. It was a very big fish, small pond situation. So I never thought about my sexuality. I wasn't surrounded by the queer community, and that's just, you know, how I grew up. So I graduated, it was a huge culture shock, like huge, and I still was just not interested in dating anyone. I don't talk to a lot of people that I go to high school with, not because they did anything wrong, but because I just felt like I don't like the person that I was in high school because I was so sad, so depressed. I had so many like intrusive thoughts and thoughts of self-harm. I'm filming this today on my 27th birthday. Today's my birthday, which is why I have these balloons behind me. My parents did like this rainbow arch balloon thing for my birthday. I remember when I was in high school and people would think about like where they wanted to go to college or where they wanted to do for work. I felt like I was going through the motions of doing that as well, because in my head I was like, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to be alive. Like that's how depressed I was. Like I was certain that I was never going to make it to 21, 25, or now 27. And I think a lot of that was because I just didn't feel confident in myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I also have a chronic illness. I have endometriosis, and I was dealing with so much physical pain as well. So it was like physical pain and mental pain, and I just felt in pain all the time. I didn't feel like I could relate to the people that I grew up with. I didn't feel like I could relate to people in like the outside world either. It was just really weird and isolating. As I got older and I started going to therapy and started to become more confident in myself, I still wasn't interested in dating anyone. I still didn't really feel attracted to a lot of people. It was more just like I felt so, once I recognized that I had depression, I had anxiety, I had a chronic illness, I had all these things, right? Once I recognized that, I was just really focused on healing those parts of myself. Felt like I was like relearning how to love myself, and I just didn't have the capacity to love anyone else. Just felt like so full and complete on my own that I wasn't really searching for another relationship. So that's another reason why I just wasn't even thinking about defining my sexuality. I was about 23 when I realized, oh yeah, I'm attracted to women and men, both. Evenly, equally. Read romance books, and any book that had a sapphic romance, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm into this. Holy shit, I'm gay. Growing up, I hadn't seen myself represented in the people around me. I hadn't really seen myself represented in media either. Reading books is the first time that I felt like, oh yeah, this is okay, and this is me, and I identify with this, and that's fine, and that's just a part of me. I feel like the very first sapphic books that I read, it was by Adriana Herrera. It was a novella. It features two girls who were Puerto Rican, which I'm Puerto Rican, and I remember reading it and feeling so incredibly seen and represented in that book. Not only was it a book that kind of like described my culture, but it also described my sexuality and like how I felt. So it was so incredibly healing. I remember the first time that I saw Adriana Herrera at a book signing, I literally cried my eyes out. Completely bawled. That's why I think it's so incredibly important to read diversely, and why representation in media, in all forms of media, music, books, TV shows, movies, is so incredibly important, because it just makes queer people feel seen. Like, I just felt seen, and it really helped me become more confident in who I am. During the pandemic is when I discovered BookTube. I started reading more. I started reading more diversely. I also started posting videos online and connected with so many friends online. And that just helped me so freaking much. It really helped with my anxiety and my depression to find people that I felt connected to, and to find a community that I felt connected to. I'm someone who loves to be alone. I'm such an introvert, but it was pretty healing to have people that I could connect to on similar interests. The very first person that I came out to, I'm gonna text her to make sure if she's okay with me telling this story. She's my best friend. Her name is Desiree, over at Desiree Alicia. And I met her through making videos, and we would just start texting and chatting literally every single day. And she has such a calming energy that I felt so comfortable with her immediately. And even now, she's like my sounding board. I feel like I could talk to her about anything. I asked her, I was like, oh, like, what do you think I am? Basically, kind of question. And she's like, oh, I always assumed, you know, you were queer or gay. And I was like, yeah, I'm bi. And that was the first time that I had ever came out to, and it felt so nice. And that was like when I was 23 and 24, okay? That was years before I ever came out online or even to my family. Almost felt easier to come out to people that didn't know me when I was younger. You know, people I grew up with, they kind of have this already perceived idea of me, and it's hard to change that. But people I meet for the first time, there's no perception of me, so it's like, oh, this is Samantha and she's bi. Okay, moving along. The same day that I had the conversation with my best friend, I had a coworker. We worked at the bank together, and we were sitting on the teleline, and she was talking about how she was bi. At that time, she was in a relationship with a man, and she was kind of just like talking about how everyone assumes that she's straight, but she is bi. And I remember I just immediately was like, oh yeah, I'm bi too. And that was like the first time I had ever said it out loud. I'm sure I like stumbled over my words, and she didn't even miss a beat. She was like, oh yeah, cool. And then she continued with her story. I remember like sitting up a little bit straighter and being like, I can't believe I just said that. Like, she doesn't even know that was like the first time that I had ever said that to someone. So I was kind of like testing the waters a little bit, just slowly coming out to people that I felt comfortable with. And I started reading more diversely here online and being just more open. I kind of came to a point where I didn't really want to come out. And it wasn't because I was embarrassed or ashamed or any of those things. It just felt silly. You know, straight people don't have to come out. They don't have to have this moment. To me, coming out and like having a conversation and having a label on things just felt so ridiculous, because again, that's something straight people never have to deal with. So I was kind of the mindset that I was just going to live my life. I was going to be authentically me, and anyone could just make assumptions if they wanted to make assumptions. I didn't feel like I owed anyone a conversation or a label. My best friend and my coworker were like the only people that I had really come out to, and then I just started living my life. Some people assumed I was gay or lesbian or bi or straight, and I just didn't care. I just was living my life. I didn't feel like anyone was entitled to those conversations or those emotions if I didn't want to share them, and I simply didn't. Maybe it was silly, maybe it was naive to think that I could just continue living like that, and it kind of all came to a head. I posted online and I came out to like some of my friends, but I had never really come out to my family. And one day we were going to Disneyland, and we decided that we were going to go to breakfast before we went to Disneyland. A lot of my family didn't really want to go to breakfast because they didn't want to spend extra money since we were already spending a lot of money at Disneyland. So I had said that I would, you know, pay for breakfast. It was my treat. And I just really wanted to have like a good meal before we spent a whole day at an amusement park. Getting into the car, my grandmother tells me that one of my cousins is going to be meeting us there because he lived down there. And he was going to have breakfast with us. He wasn't going to go to the amusement park with us, but he was going to have breakfast with us. And I remember being so upset because this was a person that I felt really, really uncomfortable around. And for many, many years, I have even said that I felt uncomfortable around. There was other reasons as to why I didn't trust this person or feel safe around them. I had told my family that. I'm not going to get into detail why I really felt like not safe with this person. But I had told my family that. And it just felt like a slap in the face to have them invited to breakfast. So I remember I could not stop crying. I could not stop crying the entire way to breakfast. And a little bit of a backstory. I'm going to try to keep this brief because I don't want... You know, it wasn't great the way my family reacted to this whole situation. And I don't want to hold that against them because they have come so far and we've had conversations about it. And I also don't want to say anything damaging, if that makes sense. But a little bit of backstory. This cousin, who I do not talk to whatsoever, is legitimately a part of a cult. Like, currently a part of a religious cult. I'm not going to say the name of the cult just for safety reasons. But I don't say cult lightly, okay? It is a cult in all definitions of the word. Living on a compound, wearing religious garments, and they have this idea in their head that they are the chosen ones. The chosen ones from Jesus. I don't know. Ones that are going to be saved and the ones that are going to act out his orders. And kind of in that, they believe that certain groups of people are abominations to earth, and that one day they will be given a signal from God to behead these people. Behead them. And they carry around actual weapons, axes, knives, firearms, waiting for this signal, essentially. So they're very, very dangerous. I really struggle to understand why some of my family still associated with them have this idea in their head that they're going to behead these abominations. And who do you think is on the list of their abominations? Queer people. Yeah. They think gay people are abominations. This isn't like offhand religious rhetoric. This is scary. This is dangerous. So, sitting across from the table at breakfast, a breakfast that I'm paying for, mind you, I was deeply uncomfortable and I could not stop crying. I couldn't stop crying. And I remember my grandmother in particular just being so offended that I was being so rude at the table because I didn't talk to anyone. I was literally sitting there like stone-faced, trying my hardest not to cry. I kept getting up to go to the bathroom to wipe away my tears and go back to the table and wipe away my tears and try to just like calm my emotions. But I was really struggling. My family kind of took that as me being rude. So when we eventually got to Disneyland, we were on the line getting to go on like the bus or the tram to go to the actual park. So we were like in the Disneyland parking lot. And I remember her just being like, can't believe you acted like that. And like, you didn't even smile at me and you didn't even talk to me and blah, 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 blah. And I remember just snapping. I remember just saying like, I was being rude. You were being rude. I don't like that person because they are in a religious cult that thinks gay people should die and I'm gay. And I just screamed that at Disneyland. And my entire family was like, whoop, like, whoop. I don't even think they had words, okay? Shock all around, shock and awe. And we didn't have time to like have a conversation about it either. It was like word vomit. I literally could not control it. It just kind of blurted out of me. And then we had to get on the tram to go to Disneyland. And not only were we going to Disneyland, but we were going with another family. One of my sisters had invited her friend. So we were actually meeting this family in the park. So I quickly had to like wipe my tears and like get everything together and just like, let's talk about it later and let's pretend to have an amazing day. We're a happy-go-lucky family at freaking Disneyland. Didn't get on a lot of rides because our family had a genie pass, but the other family with us did not. And I really wanted my sister to be able to go on rides with her friends. So anything that we would get a genie pass for, I would just let them use my genie pass and I would kind of like sit out with my nephew who was too little to ride some of the rides. And I just remember sitting there in the lines or waiting for them to finish the ride with my nephew and like crying. I was at the happiest place on earth and just crying because I couldn't understand. I also felt like so much of my choice was taken away because I was kind of like forced to come out essentially. And it wasn't how I had planned things. I know my grandma didn't mean any harm, but she's very, very old school and she struggled with the idea of me being queer. And her reaction to it was very hurtful. I was like, yeah, I didn't think any of it was a big deal. I was like, you don't think it was a big deal that he's in a cult and wants to harm gay people and I'm gay? And it was a lot. A lot more stuff happened that I just don't feel comfortable with sharing. Again, just a lot of religious trauma and very old style way of thinking. And me and my grandmother didn't speak for like a week. And then we sat down and had a conversation. She cried, I cried. And I realized that she did love me, but she just, you know, I don't know how to explain what she was thinking. She grew up in a Hispanic culture that was very machismo and toxic. A lot of the ideals that she was taught, you know, weren't very modern. She really had to educate herself and we had a conversation and we're so good now. Like I know she loves me. And it was a really tough thing for us to go through, but we did go through it. And now I know that she loves and accepts me, but it was a lot. Guys, when I tell you I was at Disneyland screaming, like, oh my god, the people around me probably thought I was crazy. That was just a couple months ago. That was just a couple months ago. So I literally just came out to my family a couple months ago this year. It's my birthday, June 22nd, and I think this happened in like March, April. So this is the very first year that I came out to my family, and there was a lot of people in my family who did not accept it and no longer talk to me. A lot of the people who were in the cult. People have this idea that if someone doesn't accept you, just like fuck them, right? Like you don't need them in your lives. While that mantra is true, it only works so much, and sometimes it is just hurtful. Sometimes it is just hurtful to have people in your life who don't accept you. Thankfully, I have my immediate family, my mom, my sisters, now my grandma, who do really accept me. And I remember when that happened at Disneyland, my younger sister like puffing up and being like, well, we're gonna love you and everyone's gonna accept you, and like she immediately came to my defense, and that was really sweet to see. Those months I posted some videos as well, like some sapphic romance videos and some other videos, and I just received a lot of comments that just weren't kind. Whenever I would do a sapphic romance video, people would say like sapphic romances weren't relatable or they weren't romantic, and it just felt so incredibly damaging. Like it just felt so incredibly hurtful to see people say things like that. I always felt so strongly that representation in media is so important, and it helped me so much realize that I was queer and be okay with it, that it was healing to see representation like that. So to get comments like that on my own videos, it was so, I just took it so personally. I would cry and cry and cry. I don't really get comments like that anymore, and if I do, I delete them, but there was like a really small period of time where I was just getting them all the time, and it fucked with my brain. I never really celebrated my birthday, and this was the first year that I told my family that I was going to. And I came down and there was pride decorations everywhere. Literally everywhere. Rainbows and pride, and just, it felt so nice, and they did it because they wanted me to feel accepted after everything we had gone through. So yeah, that just felt really sweet and kind. I'll put some videos of all the decorations, and the support from my immediate family and some of my best friends like Desiree really helped with this whole journey. So that is my coming out story. It is ever changing and always growing, and I know I'm crying now, but I feel like I'm in such a good place, mentally, emotionally, physically, and it took a long time for me to get here. It did. You can take anything out of this video, I think it would be to realize how important queer representation is in media. And also, if you have gone through anything like this, please message me. I would love to talk to you. I would love to chat with you. My DMs are always open. And you are so beautifully and wonderfully made. And everything that you're feeling, everything that you identify with is so okay. And it's perfect, and it's you. And don't ever let anyone tell you that there's something wrong with you. I'm gonna start crying and ruining my makeup, but I just wanted to say thank you guys for sitting here and listening to my story. I hope you guys can understand why I left out some pieces of my story that are a little triggering, but thank you for, listening to just a piece of my life, and thank you for being here and accepting me. I love you guys so much more than you know. I don't think you guys will ever understand. I don't think you guys will ever understand how much you guys have saved me. Being able to post videos like this and having this bookish community has meant everything to me. Because so many of you showed me so much love when the people around me didn't. And I love you guys. I love you guys. I'm gonna have to end the video here. I love you guys. Oh, also, I just wanted to say, really side note, I'm so grateful to my parents and my siblings, because they also supported me so much, and they continue to support me loud and proud, and I love them so much. So yeah. Okay, I love you guys.